Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about the aftermath of being with someone or being discarded by somebody who has borderline personality disorder. If you've been in this relationship, that you know that when you've been discarded or the relationship ends, you're often left with confusion, lack of validation, no understanding, nothing makes sense, it's not logical. You have a lot of intrusive thoughts, a lot of questions, and a lot of heartbreak because there just doesn't seem to be any closure or logic to what has just happened. I'm going to start with what happens to the borderline personality disordered person, what has made them this way, and how their pathology infects your mind, and then you suffer from the same symptoms. Pretty much, you start suffering from the same symptoms at this point that people with borderline personality disorder suffer from. So, in essence, they start giving you all of their emotional dysregulation, and then you become the person who is an emotionally dysregulated person. And that's why, in the aftermath, you often feel like you're going crazy, like you don't know what's true. You may even feel like the abuser. You feel like you can't take care of yourself. Some people often feel like they can't even go to work, get out of bed. So all of a sudden you've kind of lost yourself. And so we're going to talk about first what happens to the borderline that makes them so disordered and how that their disorder starts to affect you. So the first thing that happens when we're about 24 months of age is that we begin to individuate. And individuation is the process that people go through as they achieve a distinct separate identity. This was introduced by the psychoanalyst Carl Jung, who suggested that this was a central process in human development. As a person individuates, they gain a clearer sense of self separate from their parents and others around them. So this would include your beliefs and attitudes, your perceptions of your abilities, the way you behave, your personality, temperament, your opinions, the social roles that you play. If you fail to individuate or you poorly individuate, this can lead to a number of problems. And some of these problems you may be experiencing at this point or you have noticed in the borderline partner. Anxiety, depression, lack of boundaries. You probably noticed that you were very enmeshed with the partner. There was no clear boundary between where they ended and where you begin, a lack of self-awareness, never knowing how they're affecting people, how their behaviors are affecting other people, never taking accountability or responsibility, always blaming. This is lack of self-awareness. Low satisfaction with one's life, low self-worth, problems with motivation and goal setting, poor decision making, poor self-esteem, self-doubt. Individuation is important, not only in the development of a healthy identity, but also in the development of healthy relationships. In a relationship with a borderline, you may feel unable to pursue your own interests and goals, and instead simply go along with whatever the borderline wants. Simply to keep the peace. You're constantly walking on eggshells. You just want them to be happy. You want to make sure you don't say the wrong thing. You want to make sure that they're peaceful, because if everything's going okay for them, everything's going to be going okay for you. And why are they like this? The reason that borderlines are like this is because they failed to individuate. Many people with borderline personality disorder come from chaotic or abusive backgrounds, which may contribute to their unstable sense of self. If a person determines who they are based on others' reactions, and those reactions have been unpredictable and or scary, there is no framework for developing a strong sense of identity. The ability to understand the mental states of themselves and others is known as mentalizing. This is especially difficult for those with borderline personality disorder. Without this ability, they struggle with comprehending human behaviors and intentions, making it extra challenging for them to know themselves and others intimately. So, how does this happen? How do they fail to mentalize? How do they fail to understand themselves and others? Well, we go through something called mirroring and mentalization when we are developing. A child can learn emotional regulation, develop object constancy, and a separate in, and individual identity through mirroring and mentalization with their mother or primary caregiver, who essentially is the mother. Through mirroring, which is a behavior in which one person subconsciously imitates the gesture, speech pattern, or attitude of another, in this case the mother, and through mentalization, a child can learn emotional regulation and master the early stages of development. So, through mirroring and watching our mothers and how they interact with us, we learn how to talk, how to make gestures, how to respond to people. And through mentalization with our mother, we learn how to emotionally regulate, um, and be in charge of regulating our own emotions. With the borderline, you'll see that they kind of give all this internal dysregulation out to others. They outsource it to you, and because they did not learn to emotionally regulate on their own. So infants usually seek proximity to other human beings, most commonly the mother figure. This is the beginning of distinguishing self from the other, who is the mother or other people. This is the development of a cohesive self, not a fragmented self, but a whole identity of who you are, what you stand for, what your abilities are, what your goals are, your self-esteem. So the infant takes in or internalizes the essence of a mother. So the image of the mother that they internalize may be that of a good mother who is a source of comfort, pleasure, and safety, or conversely, a lack of maternal image due to neglect, unavailability, or incomplete maternal image will impact the baby's perception of the world. So, in other words, if the mother is not available, or if she's just dysregulated herself, if she suffers from mental illness, substance abuse, depression, if there's domestic violence, if there's any kind of neglect or abuse going on in the home, this will distort the baby's perception of the mother. She will not be a good mother, she will be a bad mother. The mother's proximity to the infant and the mother's response to the baby's sounds and movements mark the beginning of reciprocity, reciprocity, and bonding between mother and infant. The mother and baby develop harmony and remain in tune for finding and during these periods of frustration and pleasure. So if the mother is, responding to the baby's needs in a harmonious way, and remaining in tune to the baby's needs and frustrations, the baby is learning how to self-soothe. The mother also imitates the external behaviors such as cooing, babbling, reaching, smiling, and clinging to their infants early in the child's life. By the time the child is about 6 months of age, the mother should also imitate the baby's internal behaviors. An example of this is a content infant will smile and make eye contact with the mother through the process of mirroring. As we talked about before, we start learning from our mother's gestures. The mother makes a comforting gesture or smile. And this also reinforces a pro-social facial expression in the infant, which in turn reinforces the mother's role in this reciprocal relationship. If the mother is not capable of identifying the infant's inner feelings, the baby may not develop a secure attachment. So now a secure attachment, again, is a person who has learned to regulate. They do not depend on others to validate them or to make them feel safe or to make them feel secure. The mirroring also teaches the baby that she has a role in reciprocal interactions and influences the social expectations of the baby. Another thing that can happen is that mothers may also have the problem with dealing with the child's need to separate and individuate. So if the child is trying to separate and individuate as they should, the mother could have a problem with this, where her needs are making her feel like, I don't want my baby to separate. I want to be needed. I don't want him or her to individuate. This guilt and anger can then be projected onto the child during the individuation phase. This child will meet this natural process with resistance and anger as he or she attempts independence. This results in feelings of shame, anger, and depression. The child needs to know that a mother will love him or her and will be accepted and loved unconditionally. The child can then move beyond feelings of being bad and depressed caused by the confliction of staying dependent upon the mother. For the child who is ambivalent and unsure of the connection to the maternal figure, the child may appear hungry for attachment to the mother, but then reject the often missing mother. And this is where we begin the push and pull. I love you, I hate you. I want to be attached, but then I want to reject you. And this is where it all starts. This is where the whole chaos, the mess starts, right here as the child is starting to individuate. And because of this, because the child becomes ambivalent and unsure of the connection, the borderline depends on you, the partner, to regulate and stabilize their moods. Because of this ambivalence they experience in infancy, you become an external regulator instead of them regulating themselves. This becomes the push-pull, I love you, I hate you. They want to get close for comfort, like they do to the good mother, but then they fear the bad mother will reject them. So they have to reject you before you can reject them. The rejection doesn't even have to be real. If they perceive that you are going to reject them, in their minds and in their body, it feels like the rejection has already happened. So if you call up and say, hey, I'm going to be late for work today, or you don't respond to a text right away, in their mind, not even knowing why you haven't responded to that text, they have already been abandoned. They don't have the internal regulation to say, well, maybe she hasn't looked at her phone, maybe she's got a flat tire, maybe she got caught up in a conversation. They're in their mind, they go into panic mode. You've already rejected them, and they have to stay safe, so their immediate reaction is to reject you first. So the borderline tends to idealize their partner as their soulmate, best friend, and then accuse you of being their abuser. Again, you're their best friend, their partner, their soulmate. You're the good mother, but then you're also the bad mother. You're the abuser. Again, this dichotomous thinking of good mother, bad mother. This is the repetition compulsion in a borderline's life. They keep repeating this cycle. I want to get close to the good mother, but I'm so afraid of the rejection of the bad mother. The borderline depends on you to regulate their emotions and make them feel safe, stable, and emotionally regulated. But as they get closer and depend on you more for their regulating, they start to see you as an abuser, an enemy, and someone who is out to get them. Borderlines are highly paranoid and constantly scanning the environment and reading into things to support their conspiracy theory of your intent to hurt them. Remember, they're always looking for you to abandon them. It's like inevitable. You're going to do it. They see you looking at your phone. They see that you're getting messages. You must be seeing somebody else. That has to happen. There can be no other reason why you'd be looking at your phone except that you're going to abandon them or you're cheating on them. This is what makes the relationship with the borderline so unpredictable, and you feel like you're walking on eggshells. The borderline's dichotomy results in the switching between two states, one that is loving and rational, and one that is psychopathic and irrational. This is the essence of being in a relationship with a borderline. The duality of I love you, I hate you, you're my best friend, you are the enemy, false accusations. This is all crazy making, and the intimate partner cannot make sense of it. The partner starts to doubt and question their own reality and often becomes accountable for the borderline's behavior, considering themselves abusive. This is not true. This is part of the aftermath. You are blaming yourself. In all cases, it is the borderline abusing, gaslighting, manipulating, and invalidating. It is never the partner. This causes the partner to ruminate, replaying intrusive thoughts over and over again. What if I did this? What if I did that? If only I did this. If I had tried harder. These thoughts are the borderline person speaking inside your mind. He or she has caused this by changing your perception of reality that caused you to believe it is all your fault. This is not your thoughts. This is not your voice. This is not who you are. Before you met the borderline, you didn't think all these illogical, irrational things. You didn't consider yourself an abusive person. The person with borderline has caused you to be confused, thrown you off balance with illogical and irrational behaviors you cannot make sense of. One moment you love me, the next minute you hate me. This is not normal, not rational, but the partner does not realize that the borderline is two different people. The partner is constantly obsessed with these thoughts because the brain is trying to find a solution where there is no solution. The borderline psychopathic state is psychotic, not logical, and not rational. How to deal with rumination or intrusive thoughts. Intrusive thoughts are unwelcome thoughts and images that feel obsessive and uncontrollable. Intrusive thoughts are related to the past and the future. When you are focused on what was in the relationship, what you could have done, trying to make sense of your partner's irrational behavior in the past, you're depressed. And then when you're thinking about what is your partner doing now? They've ghosted me. They're giving me the silent treatment. Are they with someone else? This is anxiety because you have no idea what they're doing, where they're going, what their plans are. You're just having all these thoughts, and that causes anxiety. So intrusive thoughts cause depression with past thinking and anxiety with future thinking. Intrusive thoughts release adrenaline, which causes more intrusive thoughts that produces more adrenaline, and then the snowball effect occurs. And the intrusive thoughts begin to make the partner without borderline personality mentally ill, affecting all daily living and relationships. This is where you're probably at now. This is why you're Googling the internet. You just don't know what to do. You don't know how to get past this. You don't know how to get these thoughts out of your mind. You don't know how to make sense of everything. You're having a hard time eating, sleeping. You can't think of anything else. The difference between the borderline and the partner is that the person with borderline personality disorder is not living in the same reality. And this person cannot be reasoned with. They're not living in the same reality. The partner living in reality does not want to accept the reality that the person with borderline personality disorder just is not in this reality. It's just hard to fathom. So the partner does not want to accept that the borderline is mentally ill and the person they fell in love with does not really exist. It was a mask that the BPD wore for a while. To end these intrusive thoughts, we must accept reality. Partner's resistance is, if I accept he or she is mentally ill, there is no hope of a relationship. If I accept that he or she is not who I think they are or want them to be, then there is no hope. If I only did this or didn't do that, will he or she be happy with someone else? No, it's repetition compulsion. They will continue the cycle of push and pull no matter who they're with. And they are not rational. They will continue to be irrational with the next person. Until the non-borderline starts to challenge these beliefs, the snowball effect continues, and the more mentally ill the non-borderline partner looks, and the longer they suffer. Make a list of intrusive thoughts and come up with balanced thoughts. For example, every time the person comes into your mind, label him or her as an abuser. Every time you think of your partner being happy with someone else, know that it's only temporary, just like it was for you. No, it's not possible. Practicing mindfulness. Remember, intrusive thoughts deal with the past, which is depression, and in the future is anxiety. Being in the present moment, right here, right now, everything is okay. Another thing that survivors deal with is cognitive dissonance. And this has a lot to do with the dichotomy of living essentially with two different people. The person with borderline personality is essentially two different people. One person is empathetic, caring, loving, and then you will notice, and you may even notice, that they have even external changes. You'll notice when they start to split, and they become this inner psychopath that has no feelings. So the person without borderline starts to experience something called cognitive dissonance. And this happens on many levels. It happens because you're living with someone who has two personalities. You start to have cognitive dissonance about yourself because you're starting to do things and put up with things that you never said that you said, I would never put up with this. I would never let anybody talk to me like this or treat me this way. And then you find yourself doing that. Another thing is the relationship. What you believe the relationship is and what it actually was are two different things. So in this video, we dealt with the intrusive thoughts. In our next video, we will deal with cognitive dissonance. Stay tuned, and I will see you then.